Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world. We're here today for the Assistant Developer Community live Q&A event. So we have a bunch of really cool things to talk about today, which we're going to go through. And so I have a panel of experts here from the team. So I have Erica, Dan, and Brad, and I'll get them to say a quick little hello and explain what they do.
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm a voice user interface designer on the Google Assistant.
Hey, I'm Dan, and I am a developer advocate for Dialogflow.
Hey, and I'm Brad Abrams. I'm a product manager on the Actions on Google team.
Great. So anyway, that's our team of experts. And so what we're going to do today is we have an opportunity to sort of go through some new information about what's happening with Actions on Google and the Google Assistant and Dialogflow. And we also have the opportunity for you to ask us questions. So we have a website called Slido.com, and we have a code number 6488. We have the ability to go there and ask questions, and we'll be answering them later on during this session. So we've got a bunch of really cool stuff to go through. So I guess let's get started by sort of explaining some of the cool new things that have happened with the Google Assistant recently, and just sort of tell everyone a little bit about what's going on, and then we can get into the questions afterwards. So I guess the first thing is that we've announced that we have over 400 million devices these days.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, the Assistant is now available on tons of devices. A lot of those are Android-powered phones, but as you see from the slide in our collection here, there's a wide variety of both first-party hardware, but equally exciting to me is third-party hardware that we've had our partners go build. It's really just an exciting time, a lot of innovation in this space.
Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of really cool stuff here. I mean, you've got earbuds and speakers and headphones. It's sort of, there's something for everyone.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty
actually, on the diagram there, you've also got like Android Auto in cars and all these different device types as well. So it's not just things you have, some things are built into your vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, this is the first time in history that we've had like an operating system that runs on a wide variety of different devices and form factors, both with a screen and without a screen, on the go with headphones in your car. And it's your same assistant that runs in all those places. And then, of course, for us as developers, it's awesome that our apps can run in all those places as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, that leads into the next thing, which is that we've launched in all kinds of different languages all around the world as well. So it's not just US English now, it's everywhere, and all of our tools supported as well. So Dan, do you want to say like Dialogflow?
Yeah, so I mean Dialogflow, we are sort of continually adding language supports. We are obviously supporting all of the languages where the Actions on Google platform is available. And we're continuing to improve the models and build them out and make them even better.
I guess from a developer's perspective, like if I've been building Actions for US English the whole time, like what do I have to think about in terms of moving to new languages? Like if I'm deciding to do French or German, like how do I even get started? I can't just translate everything directly, otherwise it might not work out.
Yeah, so I mean, key really is thinking about like how do you build high quality conversations in whatever language you're working with. And it's not going to be a case of just copying, pasting something into Google Translate, unfortunately. There are going to be things like the wording and turns of phrase and just sort of elements of conversation that are different from one language to another that a straight translation isn't going to help with. So if you're building a high quality experience, you really want to make sure that you have native speakers or fluent speakers helping you build out the internationalized versions of your app.
And it's equally important to pay attention to the recognition grammars as well as what your app is saying, because you need to also be able to understand equally well.
Yeah, and I guess people in different countries would have different phrases they would use to ask for something. So while you may have translated the conversation, the initial phrase that they used to kick it off, you have to be ready to accept that.
Yeah, exactly. So the cool thing with Dialogflow is we've got support for multilingual agents. So you can build one agent whose intents are replicated in multiple languages, but you still have to collect that training data and the user says phrases for each language, and like a decent number of them for the model to be trained to be accurate. So it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of a new thing, but yeah, it's pretty exciting to think you can build an agent that works across multiple languages.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. And actually, speaking of that, we've also added other audiences. So now we have apps for families. So now we're no longer limited to just, like previously we had guidelines that restricted us from doing children, but now we actually have the ability to build apps that can be used by all age ranges and as part of the review process now. So Brad, do you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. If you had a chance to watch a kid use one of these devices, you know,
Kids love them.
they love them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a native experience to them. They're so entertaining and engaging. And I think there's something special with the spoken aspect of it. The lack of a screen actually sparks more creativity in kids. And so we've added a lot of first-party experiences and whatnot, but what I'm really excited about is that developers can go and be creative about adding their own experiences that target families. And I think it's great. Like, we've seen some really good ones from some partners. We notice kids are really attracted to brands and you know, particular characters, and being able to engage and actually talk to Mickey Mouse or talk to, you know, cars or whatever, like, is really a fantastic kind of experience.
That's one thing actually I remember from a workshop we ran a while back, was that people don't want to talk to a company, they want to talk to a persona.
Exactly.
And it's like someone who entertains them, and it just makes it more fun and more interesting. Like, Erica, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, sure. So people are always going to project a persona onto the agent once they hear a voice. So it's great for you to shape that persona and really use that to strengthen your branding.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps to make it just feel more real. Like when you think they're your friend rather than just a robot that you're talking to, you tend to, like, I thank my assistant when I ask it something. Well, thank you. And it's kind of like, why did I say that? But it's like you do that because it,
I mean, humans have a strong need to anthropomorphize things, right? And so, and I think, you know, if we want to, the history of computing has been towards more and more kind of human communication, and I think that trend is just continuing here.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so we also have a new template system that we've built that actually, while Dialogflow is really easy, we have some people who don't even want to do that. They want to just type in some text and have it generate them an action on Google. So
yeah, I mean, I think this is a fantastic way that a wide range of developers, you know, citizen developers,
especially people who aren't developers.
Yeah, that maybe don't even write write code, but like have a creative idea and really want to experiment with what they can do with this device. And it's amazing, like, once we've seen people build a trivia quiz, like, say, you know, for maybe I'm a fan of Steelers football or whatever, like, I build a quiz for that. I have a different relationship with this device now, right? I have my own experience, my own content. I'm letting people around the world enjoy that experience. And we're excited about opening up the range, so it's not just developers, but also, you know, consumers, people that are experts at something, which I think describes a lot of the world.
Or seeing they're content creators. They have the idea of what they want.
Right.
And the number of times I've been contacted by people over the years who are like, oh, I've got this great idea, but I need someone to build it for me.
Right.
I guess this template system allows you to do that.
Yeah. The other thing that's really fantastic, they're all built on Dialogflow. So for most of them, you can go get the Dialogflow project. So if you are a developer, maybe you experiment with a sheet, get it up and running, get some experience with it, and you go, how was that built? How did they do that? You can just go open the Dialogflow project, figure it out, and then go put it in your own custom experience.
Well, I think it's like a stepping stone to then move on to learning more about coding.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm not a programmer. It's like, but you are. Like, you don't realize it.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's cool. Okay, so the next thing we have that's really interesting is apps now have the ability to do transactions. So we now have the ability. We've been doing this for a while, but you have the ability for Google to facilitate payments. So you don't have to worry about handling credit card numbers yourself. And you just charge the money. We take care of everything, and it just kind of does it for you.
I mean, like our mission with the assistant is to help users get things done in their world, and that's what we want to do across. That describes almost everything we're doing with the assistant. And it turns out a large percentage of the things that I need to get done have to do with transactions and third parties, and that's what this is all about. And as you said, like, a lot of the friction of getting things done, like, well, I have to get on my credit card and I have to type this code in.
16-digit number.
I have to, like, if you're paranoid, you have to trust this third party with your credit card number. Is that a good idea? And then there's account creation. Oh, I have to remember a username and password. I have to like type that in on the small screen on the phone, or I don't know how you do it on voice. Like, so what we've tried to do is make it easy for people, for developers, to come and build transactional experiences on our platform.
And it provides a common platform, I mean, common UX guidelines, so I
Yes,
imagine your team helped with that as well?
Exactly, yeah. So it already has UX best practices, so you don't need to worry about how you would structure that conversation or write those lines.
Yeah.
It's all taken care of already. You just plug and play.
Nice, that's good. I don't want to have to type, I don't want to have to code payment gateways. and
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like that, so
yeah.
having to deal with all that business, so yeah. We've also done a bunch of really cool stuff around app discovery. So that was one thing a lot of people have asked for. You know, a lot of people want to know what actions are possible. How do I find them? So we've got a whole bunch of stuff around that too.
Yeah, I just, was it last week? At CES, we just launched the web directory. So we now have a web version of the directory where you can go and search, find apps, share links, rate apps. And that's a really good way that you know, new apps can come and be discovered, and like I said, you can share those, so that's great.
So you can put a billboard on the side of the highway with a
short code
link
to your
or a
URL.
QR code on a bus stop or whatever. Like
Exactly.
Or just the hot word phrase.
yeah, you can have that. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's saying a lot of people don't think about that, but it's just you put the hot word followed by talk to your action, and then just put that on the side of a bus or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, so that's what we call an explicit invocation, and that's actually a guaranteed invocation. It's like a voice URL for your app. Like you're guaranteed to get executed for that. And then one thing that's really cool about that, we see a lot of people going in creating shortcuts. So we want this to be your assistant. We want it to be the users, so they can customize any word, anything they say, it can come and trigger your app. So
Actually, that's something to emphasize, because I didn't know about it until recently either, but this concept of a shortcut, you can just create a word that maps to some other action.
Right.
So it's kind of like a macro or a...
That's right. So
like that,
if you have an app that like checks the tides at Myrtle Beach, for example, you can just say, hey Google, is the tide up? And it will actually invoke this app with the parameter of Myrtle Beach and give you that answer.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important principle about the assistant being customized for each user. It's their assistant, and third parties can participate in that.
Also, some of them have long trigger phrases, so
Right.
I don't want to say that all the time. I want to be able to get it done quicker, and
Exactly.
that's nice. Okay, very good. Okay, so Dialogflow, that's the new name. So it used to be called API AI when we launched, a while back, but now it's called Dialogflow. It's exactly the same tool, just a new logo and new naming, but it helps developers make easy to use experiences with actions on Google. I mean, you don't have to write a parser. That was one of the first things I thought when I saw API AI. Was also like, you mean I don't need to write a parser and a regex to deal with these grammars?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm done, I'm sold. Like, this is perfect.
It's amazing. I mean, I've worked in this space for a long time, building tools for creating conversational experiences, and Dialogflow is pretty unbelievable in terms of like the ease of use. And I mean, the thing that really strikes me is when you first open up the intent screen and you add in user says phrases, which is how you provide examples of what people might say to invoke that intent. And you automatically get system entities plucked out. So if you mention a city or an airport name or a color or all sorts of random stuff, before you've even added any of your own custom entities, there's all this stuff the system understands that it's able to extract as variables. And I guess like for anyone who's not super familiar with Dialogflow, I'm sure everyone who's like dialed into this show is, but there may be people watching after. Dialogflow is our tool for creating conversational experiences, and even without knowing how to code, you can build a conversational app that like you can one-click integrate with the Google Assistant. So we've been working on basically like how do we improve the workflow for integrating with actions on Google. And so there's a bunch of changes that you'll see coming up that streamline that process, move some of the more common tasks deeper into the Dialogflow interface, so it's easier to get stuff done. And then we're also looking at a lot of other developer feedback we've heard, things like improving versioning. So if you have different versions of your app for production versus staging or development, we're going to allow you to do that a lot more easily than you can currently. And yeah, Dialogflow, I mean, is just the best tool for building conversational experiences. So,
well, you know, I'm an engineer. I don't use the word magic ever. But Dialogflow is literally magic. You type in some phrases, and it's just like, whoa. Like I don't know. So I don't throw that word around very often.
It's spooky.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
spooky. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of hard work that goes into that. We have these like massive machine learning models that we've trained. We have a team of linguists who work on integrating and improving support for individual languages. So
Well, I think it supports many languages
right,
too.
yeah. And I mean, there are open source tools and other tools out there that do similar things, but there's no way you can really compete with having a team of language experts building out models that support the languages that we do.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we want our developers to focus on building better conversations. And so in a minute, we're going to talk about how do we improve that. But it's like, it's about people want to focus on the conversation, whatever they're trying to build. And I don't want to get caught in the weeds of writing parsers and all that stuff. So
Exactly.
sort
The
of
tool
making
should
it,
get out of your way.
yeah, the tool's meant to support you, not be the tool that's everything. So yeah. So actually, we have another slide here that talks about ways for people to improve conversations. Because while it's easy to build a tool, while it's easy to build an action, it's easy to build a bad one too if you don't know what you're doing. Or, I mean, back in the old days, people used to focus on phone trees, which was like, you know, press 1 for sales, press 2 for support. And I mean, we don't want to be doing stuff like that. So we want to make really good conversations. So did you want to say something about what things people can improve
Yeah,
to
sure.
making good conversations?
So there's kind of 4 key areas that are applicable to every app. So it's worth everyone's time to invest some thought into the design of these. One is start the conversation right, which in the voice user interface world is about, you know, designing good greetings and invocations. And you can read about that on our actions on Google design page. We also want to repair conversations when things go off track. Like sometimes the user says something that wasn't understood or they didn't respond in time. So you address that through solid error handling, which again, we have a tutorial on our design page. And since people are a little unsure sometimes of whether speech recognition has understood them correctly, we always want to confirm to them what input the app received.
Especially if it's doing something important.
Exactly. The more important it is, the more crucial it is that we get it right and that the user knows that it was understood correctly. And then finally, we want to actually understand the users correctly so that we have fewer of those errors that we were mentioning earlier. And you can do that by really strengthening the recognition grammars so that phrases that the app can understand. And luckily, Dialogflow has that as kind of a superpower, as we were talking about earlier. You can really enter all these core phrases and train it, and it kind of builds on itself. And in the corner of our screen that we're showing there, we show the greeting message for Number Genie. So if you'd like some kind of design inspiration or want to see some best practices in place for greetings and for other various aspects of design, definitely recommend checking that app out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when you deal with these conversations, like a lot of times people assume that if you didn't understand what the user said, then they did something wrong. We need to re-educate them. But a lot of the times it's the user knows exactly what they want to do. You're not processing it right. And a lot of programmers tend to focus on that, well, I need these words to be spoken. It's like, well, the user may not speak that.
Exactly.
And it's like we need to think differently about doing this to make sure the user is generally not, they generally are doing the right thing and you've got it wrong somehow.
Yeah, and you know, we do that with synonyms and improving that. And also earlier we were talking about apps for families. So when kids are using apps, they're actually more likely to run into errors just because the way they talk might be harder for speech recognition, or they might think longer before answering, or they might forget what options were offered to them. So it's particularly important to you know, not frustrate those users. So just something to keep in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, so one thing I like to remind people as well is, like, within Dialogflow, you have the tools to improve and extend the comprehension of your app. So everything that someone says to your app is captured in the training page. And you can look at those and make sure that they're captured by the correct intent. So someone might say something that you just don't understand at all, and you can decide in the training page to assign that to an intent, or you can make a new intent based on that. And you can also recategorize stuff that was maybe incorrectly matched. So even if your app is live, you can go in and make changes and improve how it's performing.
Yeah, I definitely recommend using those logs to go back and continually improve.
And I guess that leads on to the next thing, which is that while it's good to improve things after the event, it's even better to design this stuff up front.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, you know, an engineer who's writing the code's like, oh yeah, everyone's going to do it this way. And then in real life, it just doesn't work. So do you want to talk about ways that people can do better design up front? Because design is always where you should be doing this, not later on.
Yeah, so one really quick and easy way to improve it is if you're designing a conversation, use conversation to design it. So you should be kind of speaking aloud while you're doing these designs. So one really, really simple thing you can do is just role play the dialogue that you're writing. Read it aloud, read it with a friend, and see how it sounds. And anything that sounds unnatural or weird, you can correct. And then also test it with people who are unfamiliar with their app. And this doesn't mean you don't have to build a prototype. It could be as simple as I'm going to read the lines that I've written for the assistant, and I'll see like how my friend responds to them, and if they ever get confused or say things I wasn't expecting.
So like I mean, in UX design, they call this Wizard of Oz technique or whatever. So I mean, you know, so I guess we could do this now. Like you could pretend to be the Google Assistant. I guess what we really need is like a costume that you could wear that makes you look like an assistant.
Hello, I'm the Google Assistant.
Yeah, it's like a full suit that you put on. But I guess so we could pretend to just do it right now.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so I guess we can start off. So I'll pretend to be the customer, and you can pretend to be the
I'll be the
software
the
action thing.
exactly the software.
So we haven't designed anything. This is just a freestyle UX ad lib thing going on. So okay, I'll go. Okay, talk to spring bloom flowers.
And then the Google Assistant will say, okay, here's spring bloom flowers. Exactly. Say custom order if you want to create a new bouquet customization. Existing for predefined bouquet, or resubmit to redo a previous bouquet order.
Oh wow, well, that took a long time. I mean, I sat there for a while going, okay, come on. I mean, because if I was calling up a real flower shop, I'd be like, hey, I want some flowers.
Exactly.
Why are you talking so much? Like, so that took too long.
Exactly, it took too long, and it also didn't really sound natural or conversational. It sounded like one of those old school phone systems we were referring to earlier with like the press one for this,
or a tape
press two
recorder.
for
That's
that.
just like, come on, I've got work to do now.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I guess we've got a second revision here.
Where we've taken out the say this for that. Because ideally they should be speaking naturally, but it could still be improved in terms of being conversational. So let's take a look at our third draft.
Okay.
So let's do this.
Okay, let's try it again. So, okay, talk to spring bloom flowers.
Okay, here's spring bloom flowers. Do-do. Hi, welcome to Spring Bloom Flowers. I can help you order one of our classic bouquets, or you can make your own. So, what would you like?
I think I want to resubmit my previous order. So yeah, so I mean, that was a lot faster. And then I guess the next thing you could do is in the future, once you know that you've talked to them at least once, you could even shorten that even more.
Exactly.
Because it's like, hey, I already know you've been here 5 times, so just cut out that completely.
Exactly,
and they could
makes
ask for help
things
if they
more
needed to.
efficient.
Yeah.
And we've also, I don't know if you caught this, but we made the greeting more efficient from the first draft to the third draft because a first-time user wouldn't have a previous order to resubmit. So we don't need to mention that the first time.
Yeah. And this thing, by keeping state about what the user has done before, which is exactly like what would happen in the real world if you were dealing with a person that you know. If I deal with you every day, I'm like, hey, Erica, give me the usual. You know what that is because you know who I am. But if I'm talking to Dan that day, then I'm going to go, oh, he hasn't met me before. I'll have to give him some more context. So we're trying to make it a bit more natural and a bit more realistic.
Efficient, yeah, and really tapping into the user's expectations that they're projecting onto the persona, and using that to just help them know how to interact. Like they shouldn't need to hear instructions because it should feel so natural that they can just say what comes to their mind first, then it should work.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, definitely, I think we need to get some company to make those costumes to wear for the Google Homes.
Good
I'm sure
business
someone's made like a
opportunity.
Halloween costume. I mean, we could give them out as UX prototyping, UX prototyping kits to our
Just have a mask.
developers.
Yeah, or maybe like a little hat with the assistant on it.
Oh, I like
That's
that.
It's definitely a good idea. If anyone wants one of those, we definitely need to look at making that. Okay, so I guess that's our little intro about what's new and some interesting things for people to think about. So we're going to be going and answering some questions now. So as I mentioned earlier, we have Slido.com, which is a website where people can put questions up. So we have an event code 6488. So if you go there and put some questions in, we might get around to ask them. We already have quite a few questions in there already. So I think we probably have enough to get through the rest of the day. So what we'll do is we'll switch over to the questions and then we'll start going through them. And I think hopefully between our panel of experts here, we should be able to find an answer to them. So without further ado, we're going to sort through the top ones. So people have the ability to vote on these as well. So the top ones are going to we'll go through first and we'll see how we go in the remaining time that we have. So question number one, we have Raman Irani who's asking, what are the plans to incentivize or monetize the development of actions on Google?
Yeah, so I think this is about how developers can make money on the platform. And we see that happening today in a number of ways. One is companies are interested in just better brand awareness. They're interested in connecting to existing users with their existing, just a new novel way to interact with their services, for example. We also have, as we've already talked about with the transaction capabilities, we have, if you're selling physical goods today, it's a great way to get on the platform.
And if someone's already an existing customer and they're already paying you a monthly fee, then actions on Google is just another way.
Another way, exactly. Yeah. So those are the ways that are there today, and the platform is very early. That's what's exciting about this to me is being on the ground floor and being in early and kind of learning the technologies. I think there's kind of some obvious extensions that you should expect to see in the future with other monetization options, but just none that we're ready to talk about today.
And I guess also we have Google I/O that happens every year, and we have all kinds of stuff always coming out around I/O time. So it's always a good time
to drop a hint here that there may
not
be
particularly, but
some
every
more.
year Google announces something at I/O.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like I/O is a good thing. There's always something new coming out too.
Yeah, just to be clear, we're definitely interested in creating a sustainable ecosystem for developers that can make money on the platform.
Yeah, but we're always doing new things, so definitely stay tuned. Okay, so we have Wow DS, and he's asking, will common developers ever be able to use the APIs that IFTTT, how many T's there are, is using, which allows you to override any command without the ask app to prefix? Do shortcuts take care of that?
Yeah, so I think Shortcuts does address that. Just to give a little more context, so if then that is a popular kind of for the geek tech enthusiasts out there to go use. And what it does is it allows users to string together a series of actions and then assign, and then with the Google Assistant integration, they can assign a single voice phrase to kick off that recipe. And so that's obviously available there.
We also have Smart Home as well, in that integrates with all your home devices natively. IFTTT came out before Smart Home did.
Right.
So now, if you have 5 different light bulbs from 5 different companies, you can just say turn on the lights in the living room,
and they all come on.
And you can use shorter versions of that sometimes.
Right, and as you were talking about earlier, we have our linguists come up with grammars for, like, my kids say turn on the lights in different ways, and like it works internationally and whatever. So I agree, home automation is a great way to do that. Yeah. And the other piece of this is with shortcuts. So already, as we were talking about, users can customize their interaction with third-party apps with a shortcut. So if I don't want to say, ask Surfer Joe what the surf report is for Myrtle Beach, if that's too long to say, I can just go in and create a short code that says, hey, Google, is the surf up? And it'll just tell me.
Yeah.
And what's nice is you can directly from that directory page we talked about earlier, users can click right there and create a shortcut. So we made it very easy. And we're looking at other ways to make that easy as well.
Nice. And I guess this is something that would be good to get feedback on, is if there's some particular feature that this doesn't support, we'd like to know about it so that we could try to tweak it. It might be there's a use case we haven't thought about.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool. Okay. We have another question, Alan Furstenberg. So are there plans to streamline the assistant action handoff, as in, okay, getting you for frequently called actions? This really slows down things a lot. Yeah.
So this is some feedback that we hear a lot. So again, this is when you ask for a third-party action, the Google Assistant comes in and says, okay, here's, and then says the name, and then the third-party action comes and starts talking. So this is helpful for new users to kind of figure out what's going on and orient themselves. But yeah, it definitely can start to feel a little inefficient when you're more of a power user. And yeah, we hear that a lot, and we're definitely looking into, you know, potential solutions for that.
I guess that's the thing, is like when these platforms first come out, you have to over-educate the users. If you look at the first web browsers that came out, they had these big buttons at the top, home, back, bookmarks, whatever. And now you have these ultra-minimalistic web browsers where they've stripped everything out. Because everyone knows how to use a browser, and I guess we're getting to that point now with the assistant in where people get it now. And so we can, once someone's used a thing a bunch of times, we can start trimming that away, and you know, we'll be able to do things like speeding up those processes a bit when you've called the action for the 20th time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. Okay, next question. Alan Furstenberg again, he's doing well on the votes. Will notifications be available for the speaker-only surface when it leaves developer preview?
Yeah, so just to remind folks, a couple of months ago, we launched a developer preview for notifications, so apps can send push notifications. And those, what's available in preview today goes to the phone, and you get a notification there. And we're still working on exactly how to do notifications with the Google Home, with the speakers. You know, we have this, like, it's in a shared room. You know, you may or may not be, you know, with that device when the notification comes on. There may be multiple notification, maybe for different people in the household. So there's a number of kind of UX challenges that we're working on.
And you don't want it to say at 4 in the morning, hey, Dan's agriculture company has carrots on sale at 4 a.m.
Exactly. Please be quiet. So yeah, so there's a few things we're working on. So we're confident that the developer model we have is right for doing that notification, but the exact user model we're not. So my expectation is that, you know, we'll get the thing we have in preview into production, so users can actually start enjoying that, and then follow on with a speaker-only notification later.
And I guess the thing for some people who might not be aware, so developer previews are where we some developers opt in for early access to an API to try it out. It's a bit experimental, but it's something that advanced developers would want to get into. But you know, if you're a junior developer, you probably wouldn't mess with it. But it's an opportunity to try things out, give feedback to the platform.
That's right. Be on the cutting edge if you want to do that.
Okay, cool. Next question. So it's Wasig Chegum, and he's asking, what are the recommended tools for analytics and crash reports?
Yeah, what's great with the Actions on Google platform is, at the end of the day, you're building a webhook. You know, whether you're using Dialogflow or another tool, at the end of the day, you build a HTTP service. And so that means a wide variety of tools will work. Almost anything you can imagine would work. I'm a little biased because I did a few years on the cloud platform team. So I think Stack Drivers has a really good solution for both logging and a crash reporting tool, as well as performance analysis and latency, which is really important. So those are very easy to go integrate with your endpoint. So and then it's all part of the same project system as well. So when you create a project for Actions on Google, the cloud project, Stack Driver project is right there as well. Yeah.
And actually, one thing a lot of people aren't aware of is in Dialogflow itself, you have the ability to tune the machine learning algorithms. So it shows you phrases that failed, and you can go in there and tweak them and go, oh, I didn't realize people would say that. And Dialogflow flags it. What's that page called again?
The training
page,
tool. Yeah. So it's kind of like, depends whether your error is technical or if it's more like design related, and Dialogflow can help you with the design related stuff.
Because while it's fun to wear, wear an assistant hat while you're prototyping with a colleague, you can't flush out all of the things that will possibly happen.
Well, I mean, we're kind of going on a tangent here, but in a way, the best process for designing isn't to try and capture everything up front. Because you're not ever going to be able to do that. So be realistic, produce a reasonable number of examples, and then capture from your users.
That's cool. Okay, so we have Joel Hegg, who's asking, we see inconsistencies in Google Assistant across platforms, Android TV, Android Auto, etc. What are the plans to address this?
Yeah, so as we were talking about earlier, our aspiration, our desire is certainly that we have that your assistant is available on all the devices in a consistent way. And of course, each device has some different capabilities. Some have screens, like my phone has a screen, for example. Some are speaker only. So there are different capabilities, and so there'll be differences based on that. But we certainly shouldn't see kind of base level differences. And so, of course, as everyone who's worked on software projects before, there are sometimes bugs or features that just aren't quite there. But certainly, our goal is a consistent experience. Yeah. So, my suggestion is just to make sure we file those bugs, especially the ones that are hitting you as a developer.
What's the thing? I mean, the goal is to have feature parity across all platforms. But phones have text input, speakers have voice input, watches have voice input, TVs have voice and text.
Yeah.
And watches have smaller screens.
Right.
And so every one of these platforms, they have to customize it to fit on that appropriate modality, because it wouldn't make sense to try to take pages of text and put them on a watch face.
Right.
And put a little keyboard on here. So it takes some time to bring these features up to parity, but that is the goal to do that. And Auto was announced at CES as being sort of up to speed now. Wear is coming soon, I think, and TV's been announced already. So we're pretty close now.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, Anonymous. Are there plans to have an official actions on Google SDK for other technologies, Java, Ruby, Python, etc.? So right now, the client library that we support is Node.js based. A lot of our developers use JavaScript running webhooks, but I mean, I know that there are other open source projects where different developers have written their own client libraries for different languages. I don't think we have any plans right now for any specific languages. I guess if anyone, like with the question, it would be good to, if there are people who look, I know all these people who want C++ or JavaScript or something, or Java or whatever, like, if someone would tell us what is super popular and why, then I guess we could consider that. Right now, our team works on the Node.js version, but you can implement your own.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, so we documented the full JSON spec, and I know a lot of developers are just going directly against that. There are some open source. I know there's an open source Java one, and I think there's an open source Python one that libraries that people can go and contribute to. But yeah, we'd love to hear feedback. We want to do what you want. So if you want a Java library, you should definitely chime in on the forums on that.
But I remember when I first started, actually, before I'd even learned about the client library, I wrote some hacky PHP web thing on my own server that processed the JSON. It was pretty straightforward. So,
it's not.
It's pretty doable if you know what you're doing. So yeah. Okay, another anonymous question. With Google Lens rolled out to the Google Assistant, can the developers expect any SDK to leverage the Lens tool capability in their Assistant apps?
Yeah, this is definitely something we're looking at. We're really excited about. If people don't know, Lens actually gives the Assistant eyes. It allows you to take pictures of a poster and buy tickets to that movie, or take pictures of piece of artwork or whatever. So there's a lot of capabilities that Lens gives. And we do want to expose that to third parties. We're very excited to see what you as developers could do with that capability. And so we're still looking at exactly the right ways to do that. So if people have scenarios in mind, like this is what I would build if I had access to that capability, here's what I need, then we'd love to hear that. So again, just chiming in. The more specific you could be on what you want kind of helps us sort of prioritize the feature and make sure it's going to hit those needs correctly.
Yeah. I guess a good place to do that, I guess they could ask in the G+ community.
Yeah.
Would be probably a good place to ask. Okay. Next question. So can you discuss what the API for smart displays will let developers do and what it will look like for users? Will it be similar to the Actions API we've already got now? So smart displays, I guess for people who don't know, they launched at CES. And so they're devices with screens on them now. We don't have any here to show today, but they're assistants with screens. They can show graphics. Similar imagery to like what you get on a phone nowadays with the Assistant, but it's more of a dedicated device you could have in your kitchen or wherever else you want. But what will the APIs for that look
so
like?
we're really excited about these new surfaces. So first, it'll be the same API, and we really think about this as like a layered approach. So We think those devices, while they have a big, beautiful screen on them and they're touch enabled, it's still a voice-first modality. It's not a device that you're intended to sit down in front of and be working on. It's a device that, like you said, you're in the kitchen, you're whipping up a batch of cookies or something, and you're able to glance over at it. Yeah. So certainly we expect it to be a voice-driven, voice-first kind of thing. So everything we've talked about with Dialogflow and whatever continues to work. The second layer on top of that is we already have an existing set of suggestion chips and cards and image carousels that we introduced first when we launched the Actions on Google on the phone at I/O last year.
Right?
And that stuff will just work. So we spent a fair bit of time redesigning the view of the card, so the way they're rendered, it looks nice on a bigger screen and better for glanceable UIs and whatnot. But fundamentally, if you invest today in that, then you'll work on Smart Display later. And then I guess the last step there is, you have that big, beautiful screen. Is there a way to have more immersive experience that takes over every pixel or nearly every pixel on the screen and has kind of that more rich experience? And that's something, again, we're evaluating and thinking about what that should look like. So again, if people have ideas or suggestions on what kinds of apps they'd like to be able to build there, we'd really like to hear it.
Yeah, particular use cases. Yeah, that'd be really good. Okay, before we continue with the rest of the questions, I guess just to remind you, the questions we're going through sort of in an order of the number of votes. So if you go to Slido.com and ID number 6488, you have the ability to upvote them. And so we've only got about 20 minutes left. So if your questions get upvoted more, then they'll bubble more to the top. Okay, next question is, like the Google Play Awards every year, will there be Google Assistant App Awards in the future?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. We certainly are excited about the innovation and variety that we've seen developers go and build for the Assistant. We just wrapped up our first contest, and we were excited to see what people built there. And then already, just to highlight, we are ranking in the directory based on some quality and usage signals, and there's a new and notable categories in the directory where things can show up. But certainly the press attention that an awards thing could give is a great idea. So yeah, something we'll consider.
And we've already got our community program as well, which is sort of
which you guys are all in, I guess. Yeah.
So I guess that's the first step, and we'll probably do something like that. Yeah. Okay. Our next question is: are you planning on adding variable support for shortcuts? On IFTTT, you can use variables as placeholders. Not having that in shortcuts is a major limitation. Okay, so I guess the shortcuts are baked, that you can't substitute in variable names. Or
like I was using the surf up example. I can't say, "Hey Google, is the surf up at Myrtle Beach?" Or at Wrightsville Beach. At Dollar Beach name. So, that is something that we're looking to. Proves to be harder than we expected. So it is something that we're looking at.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And can we expect to see the Assistant in Chrome and in the web experience?
Yeah, so I have a Pixel book. It's got a great Google Assistant experience built in there. In terms of in the Chrome browser and in the web, I don't think we have any direct plans. But what I will say is that if you build an app in Dialogflow, and you build your agent in Dialogflow, we see a lot of our partners build an Assistant app with Dialogflow, and then they're able to also host that natively in their website, kind of separate from the Assistant. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so I mean, Dialogflow's API is brain dead simple, basically, from the sort of client side. So if you are building something on a web page, basically you just make a get with the string of whatever the user was saying, and Dialogflow will send back information about what it means and also whatever response should be relayed back to the user. So if you want to build something in the web, I mean, you could build a Chrome extension for your specific use case. But if you want to build something in the web, it's super easy.
And that's the nice part, is because you can build it in Dialogflow, make it work in your Assistant. You can then embed it into your website. You can embed it into an Android app that you own as well.
The same actual agent.
Yeah, and it's not the OK Google part. It's your action only from the website down. So it's sort of an interesting way of embedding it. But you don't have to worry about them invoking you first. It's already pre-invoked when it starts, basically. So, and I guess if you really want to use it in a web browser, you can just use the web simulator.
Right. The web sooner or later.
All right, next question is, will we ever be able to change the invocation name to the name of our assistant? Jarvis, can you turn on the office light? So I guess this is asking about, can we replace the "Hey Google" catchphrase, which is a lot harder than it sounds.
Right. There's a lot of technical challenges with that. So we call it the hot word. Because the device is listening for the hot word all the time, and that's all done locally. So we want to be very privacy sensitive on it. So it's actually running on this device. The hot wording code is running on that device. And so we want to keep the cost of goods really low on that device so we can make them available
But it's
widely.
like a dedicated piece of hardware that runs really low power. It's like you can't run the standard CPU in a phone to do this process because it's way too expensive. It drains the battery in an hour.
That's exactly
right. And so in order to get it to work on that custom DSP or whatever they're doing, it's highly tweaked. And so if you were to try to retrain it, you wouldn't be able to do it good enough.
Right.
And that thing has been tuned for a long time.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we totally get the, okay, Google is not maybe the ID. Sorry if I set off everybody's assistance. But is not the ideal name in every circumstance. So, we are looking at some options there, but it is just a technically challenging space.
And semiconductors change. I mean, 10 years ago, this would have been completely impossible.
Right, exactly.
So, we can't speculate about the future, but we know that stuff improves constantly every year after year. And so, 5 years from now, I can't see any reason why you wouldn't have a dedicated chip that could do any keyword that you wanted. Stuff was always changing.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing is that it's very hard to pick a phrase that is actually perfectly disambiguated from every other phrase.
Right.
Because if you said "hi" as your invocation keyword, it would wake up every 3 seconds for all kinds of reasons. Hi, how's it going? Hey. Like you would never get any work done. So not every keyword is a good keyword.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Next question from Alan. Are there plans for monetization support beyond transactions? Have we done this one already?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this, but just to be, let me just answer direct. Yes, there are. We're working on those right now. And again, I'll just say the same thing. We'd love to hear the scenario. Like, what scenarios do you think are most important? What would you like to go see?
Cool. Okay, we covered pretty much that one earlier. Next question. At I/O 2016 and 2017, it was suggested that there would be cast integration for Actions developers. What are the plans for this? So I guess right now, cast is available in the assistant, so you can say, play this music on this device, and it does casting support. But I guess the question's asking more about if a third-party developer could hook into that. So I guess that would be providing a different music service or a different...
Yeah, so I guess I'd say the same thing. I'd love to hear the scenario about what's really interesting. I mean, we certainly think that having that the assistant being cross-platform is really important, and being able to, as you were talking about with home automation, be able to control all the surfaces in your house and devices in your house. And certainly my TV running a Chromecast is one of those surfaces. It was some of the scenarios we've thought about if people want to try the Let's Get Spooky is something we launched around Halloween, and it actually it controlled the Chromecast from the assistant experience on the home. So that's the kind of thing that we're thinking about. But again, more concrete scenarios. This is what I'd like to see would be good.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is that some of it you could simulate with shortcuts, or you could create a conversation action. So you could create, Wayne's audio experience or something, and you could then talk to that and then make it play sound effects or whatever.
Yeah, so, sure. It's just controlling the screen.
Yeah, it's not going to control a Chromecast device, but you can do other things. Yeah. Okay. All right, our next question is, why are users not able to use Actions through Android Wear? What is the plan and timeline for adding support for Android Wear? So I guess previously we talked about the auto question with the feature parity.
Right.
So this is part of that too, in that, we need to, the experience needs to be redone and to make everything fit on a watch. I guess there's UX considerations to making it tiny, text readable, but they're working on it. So hopefully they'll be announcing something soon, but TV just happened, auto just happened, so it's on the way. It's just we're not quite there yet, but definitely we love Wear. I love Wear. I've been doing Wear since... I've had wearables before they were cool. I was doing Wear before Wear existed, and actually 10 years ago I worked in a lab where we built our own watch prototypes too.
Great. Okay.
So I mean, I've been into watches forever, so I love Android Wear. So we're definitely going to be doing that. Next question. is when should we expect an integration with other Google products such as Maps, Gmail, Calendar, Drive, etc.?
Yeah, again, that would be great to hear kind of what exactly the scenario is and what do you mean, what do you mean by integration?
You can say, how's my day? And the calendar, like anything in your calendar, it'll say you have a meeting coming up soon, right?
Yep. And I can imagine scenarios like you're saying, like maybe if I'm booking a massage appointment via the assistant, it can add that to my calendar.
Yep.
You know, that could be an interesting scenario. And same with Maps, you know, like certainly, you know, if I'm going to order a coffee, I might from a particular location, I might want to be able to disambiguate that location. So that those kind of things are definitely things we're thinking about.
Yep.
But yeah.
That's cool. I guess the other thing we need to be aware of is the reason we don't have APIs for everything is because we have to be careful about not giving away customers' data and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the nice things about Android and everything is all the apps are compartmentalized. They can't read things without permission.
Right.
So we have to make sure we got the permission models right before we just allow.
I mean, the user
people to get
trust is
access
so
to it.
important. If we lose the user trust, nothing else we do matters, right? So we definitely want to expose more capabilities, but we want to preserve user trust and then do it in a way that, like you said, there probably needs to be some consent and permission model, but how do you do that in a way that's like natural for users, that they kind of understand what's going to happen, but it's not like get out your phone and enter a code, you know, like that it's kind of a reasonable experience.
Yeah,
so
the flower shop shouldn't have access to all my Drive documents or something like that. Like, it doesn't need to. Like it's sort of, so we need to think about stuff like that. Next question is full support for account linking / implicit grants. Users should be able to be redirected to a re-authentication page instead of unlinking and relinking. You don't get the unlinking part.
So I mean, it sounds like there may be just a bug here. I mean, just to kind of refresh everybody. So we have account linking capability. So as I mentioned, many of our apps on the assistant connect to existing services that you already have. Say you have a service that plays music or buys coffee or whatever, and you can just link that. You can link, essentially what it does is links every user on the assistant is assigned in with a Google account, and you can link that to your account. So every time we identify that user is coming in, we tell you, oh, this is your user on your side. So that's what account linking generally does. It is done with OAuth, which is an industry standard system, but it is a authentication interface between two systems that may be incompatible or whatever. So I can imagine there may be bugs in that experience. So I think that's just one we should talk about in the forum and try to drive down.
Yeah, ask in the forum about it. I mean, we are doing a lot of work on account linking to improve that experience. It's just quite complicated right now. So we're working on stuff to try to streamline that process a bit to make it a bit easier, because a lot of people don't want to get into the deep end of OAuth because it's quite complicated. Okay, next question. Perhaps when a user has a shortcut set, we don't need the assistant to do the handoff. So I guess this must be that, okay, let's talk to the flower shop. So that would be cutting that out.
Yeah, so again, this is some feedback that we hear really often, and it's definitely valid. So we are looking into this space and improving it.
Yeah, it'd be like web browsers. It's like one day we're going to have this super streamlined experience with no buttons. Next question is, what is your favorite OK Google command and action? Let's start from the panel.
Okay,
who wants to go first?
So I like using the translate commands a lot. I just started learning German 6 months ago, so sometimes if I forget a word, I'll ask, and then when I hear it, I remember it. Or if I can't remember, I just hear its translations, and it's a quick refresher.
Yeah.
I guess I love playing music. I'm terrible at playing music, but I'll sit there in my living room jamming on guitar, and I want to remember how a certain bit of a song goes. I can just ask my Google Assistant, which I won't do now because all of yours will start playing my taste in music.
So mine might be talk to best dad jokes. So that's what.
I hear the author of that is really awesome.
Yeah, so that's my app, and it holds a special place in my heart because it was actually the first app that we built as we were developing. When we first got anything to work, when we first got SSML to work, when we first got I18N to work, it's the kind of test, because it's my app, it's the app we experiment on and test on. So it kind of holds a special place in my heart. And then I love the corny dad jokes. So.
And it's in multiple languages.
And it's in many languages now, so
you can try
please
it all
go
around
try
the world,
it. Yeah.
Actually, I like the assistant mainly in my car when I'm driving. You just press a button and you can ask it a random question. If you're having a debate as to how many horsepower a car has, or how far is it from here to there, or whatever, you can just ask it random stuff, and it knows crazy things that you'd be like, wow, how do you actually know that? It's it's pretty cool. So I actually like it driving and stuff like that when you don't have the ability to type. Because I can type at 1,000,000 miles an hour, so I love typing and doing stuff, but when I can't type is when I really like it. That's my favorite time.
Yeah, it's good if you're at a bar having an argument with friends about like what is this or that, and you can just ask the assistant, and the argument usually still continues afterwards.
Yeah. All right, we've got only a few more minutes, so let's quickly see how many we can get done. Okay, so will you come up with a good noun akin to Alexa's skill? Action on Google is clumsy. I guess the thing is that, I mean, Actions on Google is the overall platform.
Yeah.
But we just call them like assistant apps or whatever, because we're getting to this point now where it's like we have all these different apps that contain actions inside of them, whatever you want to call it. But in the same way that we have apps on Android, we have apps on the assistant, and sort of, I think over time we're going to see a blurriness of the lines between them. Like the fact that you can take Dialogflow stuff and embed it into an Android app, or vice versa. Like, I think we're going to look back on this in the same way that apps on laptops and apps on phones and apps on an assistant, and it's
So
getting stuff done.
Yeah, I just echo everything you said. So we think of Actions on Google. So just to give you some insight, like how we think about it, like we thought about calling it like the Google Assistant Developer Platform, but we decided to call it Actions on Google because we have aspirations, like our plans are for that to be a much broader thing across all of Google. So we may be misunderstood for a little while, but that's okay. And then the apps and actions terminology is exactly as Wayne said. Like, you know, our feeling is these are just apps. They're apps that are voice driven. You'll do those apps on your phone, we think. That will be super common. Your apps on the speakers, apps kind of everywhere. They're just apps.
And the lines are going to blur, I think, to the point where, you know, Android developers are going to, like, it's getting closer and closer as over time.
But we hear, but definitely just to resonate, like we hear your feedback. It is a rough spot we need to get over.
Okay. One other UX question. So, any chance of letting third-party actions use the native assistant voice? It's vastly superior to the robotic voices available to us. So I guess it's saying how the assistant has slightly different voice than the available 4 voices or whatever you get.
Yeah, I don't know of any plans in that direction at the moment, but you can do custom audio recordings if you like. So I think the Headspace app, for example, uses that. And if you prefer that more natural sound to the TTS options.
Well, see, you can hire a voice actor.
Yes.
Like if you have a brand, and you have that person already, just get them in, record some audio, and then you can just have them show up, record it, and then you can use SSML to play it back. And that,
exactly.
And then sometimes if it needs to hand off to, like, you can have it for the intro, and then after, if you ask it a complex question, then you go, okay, now I'm going to talk to my friend who's going to tell you the answer. So the persona hands off to the more robotic voice, who's not your stage actor.
And you could also consider, you know, if your app doesn't have a lot of TTS, then you could just do the whole thing recorded.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen that done too, where everything's recorded. And
Yes.
it sounds really cool. Like you think you're talking to a famous Hollywood actor or whatever, and you feel like they're in your kitchen talking to you.
It's really natural.
Yeah.
But in terms of TTS, though, we are investing strongly in WaveNet. People have seen this project WaveNet, which is a ML trained model to creating natural text to speech. So it's just a thing that we have to get studio time and training. So we're going to be improving all the voices and bringing them up to that WaveNet level of quality.
And they have improved over the years. Like if you look at Google Maps with its voice that it used to have years ago, I mean, it's getting better all the time. So just computation takes time, researchers, and there's a bunch of people working on this stuff. So, and I guess with that in mind, we're actually out of time. So it's an hour has just gone by so quickly. So I guess we've run out of time for questions. So we'll have to save the others for next time. But what we'll do is we'll just end up quickly. So before we finish, we'll just mention places where people can go to get further information. So We have an Actions on Google developer community on Google+, so g.co/actionsdev. So that's a great place to ask questions and discuss things, and also to follow and keep up to date with the latest news. Every time we do a new blog post or a new API release or something, we talk about it there. And many of the engineers on our team who write the samples and actually know how this works, they work on this kind of stuff. We have our documentation on developersgoogle.com. We have Stack Overflow questions where people can ask and our engineers reply there. And then also on Twitter, you can follow us on there as Actions on Google. And I guess that's about it for our time today. But definitely, we look forward to seeing more questions later. We look forward to another one of these, and we look forward to your feedback on how we can improve it. And if you have more information about your questions, we might be able to go into more detail on the answers. So thanks very much. I want to thank our distinguished panel of guests here today. And thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.